The colony ship Liberty's Dawn drifted through the silent darkness of space, carrying 3,000 sleeping colonists toward their new home. The vessel wasn't designed for war. Its hull contained gardens, living quarters, and equipment for building a settlement on a distant world. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. After 2 years of travel, they were finally approaching their destination. The alarm shattered the peaceful silence. Morrison's second officer, Lieutenant Gary Pierce, looked up from his station with wide eyes. His hands moved across the controls as he tried to understand what the sensors were telling him. "Captain, we have multiple contacts," Gary said. His voice was steady, but Morrison could hear the tension beneath it. 20 ships moving to intercept us. "They're big, sir. Really big." Morrison felt his stomach tighten. The colony ship was alone, far from Earth and any help. He'd known the risks when they'd accepted this mission. Humanity was new to deep space, and they had no idea what was out here. Now apparently they were about to find out. "Communications, try to hail them," Morrison ordered. "Let them know we're peaceful." Before the communications officer could respond, the view screen flickered. An alien face appeared, and Morrison had to fight to keep his expression neutral. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its elongated head. Its skin was a deep purple color, marked with ridges that ran down from its crown. When it spoke, the computer translated its words into English. "Primitive vessel, you have entered territory claimed by the Valtheron Empire," the alien said. Its voice was cold and formal. "I am Commander Zethra of the Imperial Fleet. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." Morrison stood up slowly. He could feel every eye on the bridge watching him. 3,000 people were depending on his next words. 3,000 people who were asleep and helpless in the cryo chambers below. "Commander Zethra, I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Liberty's Dawn. We had no knowledge of your territorial claims. We're a colony ship, not a military vessel. We mean no harm to your empire. We'll gladly alter our course and leave your space." Zethra's 4 eyes narrowed. Something that might have been a smile crossed his face, but it held no warmth. "You misunderstand your situation, human. The Valtheron Empire does not negotiate with primitives. Your vessel and all aboard now belong to the Empire. You will submit, or you will be destroyed. You have one of your minutes to comply." The screen went dark. Morrison looked at his crew. Gary was gripping his console so hard his knuckles had turned white. The communications officer, a young woman named Katie Ross, looked terrified. They all knew the Liberty's Dawn had minimal weapons, nothing that could stand against 20 warships. "Captain, what do we do?" Katie asked softly. Morrison walked back to his command chair and sat down. He touched a panel on the armrest, entering a code that he'd hoped he would never need to use. A new screen appeared, one that only he could see. His orders from Earth Command had been clear. If humanity encountered hostile aliens, there was a protocol to follow. "Katie, send a priority signal back to Earth. Full data burst. Everything we've recorded about these aliens and their ships. Make sure it gets through." "Yes, sir." "Sending now." Morrison watched the countdown timer. 40 seconds until Zethra's deadline expired. He touched another control, this one activating a system that wasn't listed in any of the ship's official documentation. The Liberty's Dawn might look like a simple colony ship, but humanity had learned to be cautious. They'd learned to prepare for the worst. "Captain, they're locking weapons on us," Gary reported. "Shields to maximum," Morrison ordered calmly. Gary's head snapped around. "Sir, we don't have shields. This is a colony ship." Morrison allowed himself a small smile. "Yes, we do. Activate them now." Gary's hands moved across his controls, accessing systems he hadn't known existed. His eyes went wide as new displays came online. "How is this possible?" The countdown reached 0. On the view screen, Morrison watched as the Valtheron ships opened fire. Brilliant beams of energy lanced through space, converging on the Liberty's Dawn. The bridge crew braced for impact, but the collision never came. A shimmering barrier appeared around the colony ship, absorbing the weapons fire like it was nothing. Morrison opened the communications channel. Zethra's face appeared again, but now the alien looked shocked rather than confident. "Commander Zethra, I tried to resolve this peacefully. You chose violence. That signal I just sent has informed my government of your actions. They know exactly where we are. I'm giving you one chance to withdraw. Leave us alone and we can forget this happened." Zethra's shock turned to rage. "You dare threaten the Valtheron Empire? I will tear your pathetic ship apart. I wouldn't recommend it, Morrison said quietly. The Valtheron ships attacked with everything they had. Energy weapons, missiles, and projectiles filled the space around the Liberty's Dawn. The colony ship's shields held easily, deflecting every shot. Morrison gave another order and thousands of small objects deployed from hidden bays along the ship's hull. What are those? Gary asked, staring at his sensors. Defensive drones, Morrison explained. Each one has its own shield generator and power supply. They'll keep us safe while we get out of here. The drones formed a protective sphere around the colony ship, creating a barrier that nothing could penetrate. Morrison ordered the engines to full power. The Liberty's Dawn began to move away from the Valtheron fleet, accelerating faster than any ship its size should be able to move. Zethra tried everything to stop them. His ships pursued, firing constantly. The drones held their formation, protecting the colony ship perfectly. After 10 minutes of futile attacks, the Valtheron commander finally stopped wasting ammunition. The Liberty's Dawn jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the frustrated aliens behind. Morrison slumped in his chair, feeling the tension drain from his body. They'd survived, but he knew this wasn't over. He'd just made first contact with an alien empire, and it had gone about as badly as possible. The message he'd sent to Earth would take weeks to arrive. The response would take even longer. Until then, they were on their own. Gary spoke up from his station. Captain, those shields, the drones, the enhanced engines. This isn't a normal colony ship, is it? Morrison shook his head. No, it's not. Earth Command was worried about sending colonists into unknown space. They gave us some extra protection just in case. I guess they were right to worry. What happens now? Katie asked. Morrison looked at the stars streaming past on the view screen. Now we continue to our destination and set up our colony. And we hope that Earth is ready for what's coming, because I don't think the Valtheron Empire is going to forget about this. He was right. Deep in Valtheron space, Commander Zethra was already composing his report to Imperial Command. He'd been humiliated by primitives, defeated without landing a single hit. His pride was wounded and he wanted revenge. The Valtheron Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. They would not tolerate defiance from unknown aliens. The war between humanity and the Valtheron Empire had begun, though neither side fully understood it yet. And the galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks had passed since Commander Zethra's humiliating encounter with the human colony ship. His report to Imperial Command had been met with disbelief and anger. The High Council had called him incompetent. They'd accused him of cowardice. No one believed that a primitive species could have defeated a Valtheron battle group. Grand Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Dawn, and reviewed the fleet around him. 300 warships, the largest battle group assembled in a decade. The Empire was sending a message. These humans would learn their place or they would be destroyed. The Admiral was old by Valtheron standards, with deep ridges on his face that marked his age and experience. He'd conquered 12 systems in his career. He'd broken civilizations that had resisted the Empire. This mission should have been beneath him. But the High Council wanted to make an example. They wanted the humans crushed so thoroughly that no other species would dare to resist Imperial expansion. Admiral, we're approaching the human system, his navigation officer reported. The world they call New Terra. Korath studied the tactical display. New Terra was a small colony. Barely 50,000 humans living on a planet that had only been settled for 5 years. His sensors showed minimal defenses. A few orbital platforms, maybe 40 ships, and a planetary shield that looked standard for a young colony. It would take his fleet less than an hour to break through those defenses. Open a communication channel to the planet, Korath ordered. A human face appeared on his screen. It was a female with short brown hair and calm green eyes. She wore a uniform that Korath assumed was military, though it looked plain compared to Valtheron battle dress. The woman smiled slightly, which confused the Admiral. She should be terrified. I'm Lieutenant Commander Amy Wells, Orbital Defense Coordinator for New Terra. Can I help you? Korath was taken aback by her casual tone. Did she not understand the danger she was facing? I am Grand Admiral Korath of the Valtheron Empire. You are surrounded by 300 Imperial warships. Your colony is in violation of Imperial space. You will surrender immediately or we will destroy you. Amy's smile didn't fade. If anything, it grew wider. Grand Admiral, I appreciate you introducing yourself properly. Let me be clear about something. You are currently in human-controlled space. You've been in violation of our territory for the past 6 hours. We've been tracking your fleet since you entered this system. The Admiral felt a flash of anger. How dare this primitive speak to him this way? You have 40 small ships and a few orbital platforms. I have 300 warships. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Admiral Korath, I need you to understand something very important. Amy's expression became serious. Your empire made a mistake when you attacked the Liberty's Dawn. You assumed humans were primitive and weak. You didn't ask questions. You didn't try to communicate. You just attacked. We gave you a chance then. We're giving you another chance now. Leave this system. Return to your space. We don't want war. Korath had heard enough. You dare to threaten the Valtheron Empire? Your arrogance will cost you everything. All forces prepare to attack! Amy sighed. She actually sighed, like a teacher disappointed with a stubborn student. I warned you. Remember that in a few minutes when you're screaming for mercy. The screen went dark. Korath turned to his tactical officer. All ships begin the assault. Target the orbital platforms first, then the planetary shield. I want this colony broken within the hour. The Valtheron fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 300 warships, each one powerful enough to destroy a city with a single shot. The orbital platforms around New Terra looked tiny in comparison, like insects facing a storm. The platforms opened fire first. Korath watched on his tactical display, expecting to see the weak, ineffective weapons of a primitive species. Instead, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The platforms fired solid projectiles, but these projectiles were moving at impossible speeds. They crossed the distance between the platforms and his fleet in seconds. The first projectile hit the battleship Eternal Flame. The kinetic impact tore through the ship's shields like they didn't exist. The projectile passed completely through the Eternal Flame and hit 2 more ships behind it. All 3 vessels exploded, their reactors breached by the devastating impact. Evasive maneuvers, Korath shouted. All ships scatter formation? More projectiles followed. Each one killed multiple ships. The orbital platforms fired in a steady rhythm, never missing. Korath watched in horror as his fleet took casualties at a rate he'd never seen before. Within 5 minutes, 50 of his ships were destroyed or disabled. Sir, the human defensive fleet is launching, his tactical officer reported. 40 ships rose from New Terra's surface and orbital docks. They were small compared to Valtheron warships, sleek and fast-looking. Korath ordered 200 of his remaining ships to engage them. It should have been an easy fight. His ships outnumbered the humans 5-1. The human ships moved like nothing the Valtheron had ever encountered. They accelerated so quickly that any organic crew should have been crushed by the forces involved. They turned and twisted in ways that defied physics. The Valtheron ships were powerful but slow, built for durability and firepower. The human ships were built for speed and precision. A human fighter swept past 3 Valtheron cruisers, firing weapons that looked tiny on the tactical display. Those tiny weapons tore through shields and armor with ease. All 3 cruisers were crippled in seconds. The human ship was already gone, moving to its next target before the Valtheron could return fire. Korath realized with growing horror that his fleet was being destroyed. Not just defeated, but systematically dismantled. Every human ship was worth 10 of his own. The orbital platforms continued their deadly barrage. In 20 minutes, 100 of his warships were gone. The communication screen activated without him calling for it. Amy Wells appeared again. Her expression was cold now, all traces of friendliness gone. Grand Admiral Korath, this is your final warning. Order your fleet to retreat now, or none of you will leave this system alive. Pride and fear warred in Korath's mind. He'd never retreated from a battle. The shame would destroy his career, but staying meant death for his entire fleet. He made the only choice his training and experience allowed. All forces, intensify the attack. Focus fire on those platforms. Amy's expression didn't change. So be it. You chose this. The human ships stopped holding back. Korath didn't even understand what changed. But suddenly his fleet wasn't just losing, it was being slaughtered. Human ships moved through his formations like predators through a herd. Every shot they fired found a target. Every maneuver put them in the perfect position to kill. The orbital platforms began firing different weapons. Energy beams that cut through multiple ships at once. Missiles that split into hundreds of smaller warheads. Weapons that seemed to make Valtheron ships simply stop working, floating dead in space. Korath's flagship took a direct hit. Alarm screamed as systems failed. His bridge filled with smoke. He could feel the ship dying around him. Through the chaos, he managed to give one last order. All remaining ships retreat. Get out of this system. Less than 100 ships escaped. 300 warships had entered the new Terra system. 200 were destroyed or captured. It was the worst defeat in Valtheron history. Korath sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed the burning remains of his fleet. Amy Wells appeared on his screen one last time. Grand Admiral, I want you to take a message back to your empire. Humanity doesn't want war. We want peace. But if your empire insists on conflict, we will defend ourselves. Next time you come to human space, come with diplomats, not warships. Because if you bring another fleet, we'll destroy it too. And we'll keep destroying your fleets until you learn that we're not prey. The screen went dark. Korath's flagship limped away from New Terra, followed by the pitiful remnants of his once mighty fleet. Behind them, the human colony continued its peaceful existence, barely damaged by the battle. The orbital platforms returned to their stations. The defensive fleet landed back at their bases. On the surface of New Terra, Amy Wells filed her report to Earth Command. The Valtheron Empire had been given every chance to choose peace. They'd chosen war instead. Now humanity had to prepare for what would come next, because she knew with absolute certainty that the Valtheron would return, and next time, they would bring everything they had. The news of the Battle of New Terra spread through human space like wildfire. People celebrated in the streets of Earth's major cities. Humanity had faced an alien empire and won. But in the quiet rooms where decisions were made, no one was celebrating. Admiral Henry Cross stood at the head of the conference table in Earth Command headquarters. Around him sat the Unified Earth Council, 12 men and women who guided humanity's path among the stars. They looked tired. They'd been in meetings for 18 hours straight, trying to understand what came next. Let me be clear about our situation, Henry said, his voice rough from too much talking and too little sleep. Yes, we won at New Terra, but we won because the Valtheron underestimated us. They sent 300 ships against a minor colony. Next time they'll send thousands, and they'll attack Earth directly. Council member Director Lisa Grant leaned forward. She was younger than most of the council, brilliant and direct in her thinking. Admiral, our technology is clearly superior to theirs. Our ships are faster, our weapons more powerful. Can't we just defend our major worlds? Henry shook his head. Our technology is better, but we're vastly outnumbered. The Valtheron Empire controls thousands of systems. They can build ships faster than we can destroy them. Every battle will cost us resources we can't easily replace. We might win 10 battles, 50 battles, but eventually the numbers will overwhelm us. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what Henry wasn't saying directly. Humanity might lose this war through simple attrition. They could win every battle and still lose the war. Is there any alternative? Asked Council Member Frank Russo. Some way to force a peace before this gets worse? Henry took a deep breath. This was the moment he'd been preparing for. There is one option, but it requires me to reveal something that's been classified at the highest levels for 20 years. He pressed a button on the table. The lights dimmed, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed a ship, but calling it a ship seemed inadequate. The vessel was enormous, bristling with weapons and defensive systems. It looked less like a spacecraft and more like a mobile fortress. What am I looking at? Lisa asked softly. 20 years ago, when we first detected signs of hostile civilizations near our space, a decision was made. We couldn't know if we'd ever face a threat like the Valtheron Empire, but we had to prepare for the possibility. So we started Project Warden. Henry manipulated the display, showing the ship from different angles. Project Warden's goal was simple: create a vessel capable of defending humanity against any threat. Not just defending, but winning. A ship so powerful that any enemy would think twice before attacking us. How is that even possible? Frank asked. The resources needed to build something like that would be enormous. It consumed the output of 12 colony worlds for 15 years, Henry confirmed. We took resources that could have been used for expansion or colonization and poured them into this project. Only 3 were ever built. Their existence is humanity's most closely guarded secret. Lisa stood up and walked closer to the hologram. She studied it carefully, her analytical mind processing what she was seeing. Those weapons, the power core, the size of it. Admiral, this isn't a warship. This is something else entirely. You're right, Henry agreed. Normal warships are designed to fight other warships. These were designed to fight entire fleets. Alone. The council members exchanged glances. The implications were staggering. Henry could see them struggling to understand the scale of what they were looking at. Does it work? Lisa asked. Has it ever been tested? Only in simulations, Henry admitted. We've never had reason to deploy them in actual combat. But every simulation suggests they'll perform as designed. Each one is 20 kilometers long. They carry enough firepower to destroy a planet's surface if needed. Their shields can withstand sustained bombardment from hundreds of ships. Their computers can track and engage thousands of targets simultaneously. You said 3 were built, Frank noted. What are they called? Henry changed the display, showing 3 different ships. They looked similar but had subtle variations in their design. We gave them names that represented their purpose. The first is called Retribution. The second is Salvation. The third is called Reckoning. Which one are you proposing we use? Lisa asked. Reckoning, Henry said immediately. It's the most advanced of the 3. It has systems the other 2 don't have, and its captain is the best we have. The display changed again, showing a man in his 50s with gray hair and steady eyes. This is Captain Pete Johnson. He's been training for this mission for 8 years. He knows every system on that ship. He's run thousands of combat simulations. If anyone can handle what's coming, it's him. Council member Sarah Kim spoke up. Admiral, you're talking about deploying a weapon that's never been tested in real combat against an enemy we know almost nothing about. What if it fails? What if the Valtheron have weapons we haven't anticipated? Then we adapt, Henry said simply. But here's what I know. The Valtheron are coming. Our intelligence suggests they're gathering the largest fleet in their history. They're going to attack Earth directly. If we meet them with a conventional defense, we might win, but we'll take massive casualties. Our cities could be damaged. Millions could die. He paused, letting that sink in. But if we deploy Reckoning, we send a message. We show the Valtheron Empire that humanity isn't just capable of defending itself. We show them that attacking us has consequences so severe they'll never try again. Lisa sat back down. It's a deterrent. You're not just trying to win a battle. You're trying to end the war before it really starts. Exactly, Henry confirmed. Yes, Reckoning is powerful, but its real strength isn't in its weapons. It's in what it represents. If the Valtheron see what we're capable of, if they understand the cost of fighting us, maybe we can force them to negotiate. Frank looked skeptical. And if they don't? If they see this super weapon and just get angry? If they decide to commit everything to destroying us? Then we'll destroy them first, Henry said bluntly. I don't want war. None of us do. But I'm not going to gamble with human lives by holding back. If the Valtheron want peace, we'll give them peace. If they want war, we'll give them a war they can't win. The council debated for another 3 hours. Some members argued for a diplomatic solution. Others wanted to try a conventional military defense first. But in the end, they came to a consensus. The risk was too great. Too many human lives hung in the balance. Lisa cast the final vote. We authorize the deployment of Reckoning. Admiral Cross, you have full authority to use whatever force is necessary to defend Earth and secure peace. Henry nodded solemnly. This was what he'd hoped for and dreaded in equal measure. I'll contact Captain Johnson immediately. We'll position Reckoning at the edge of the solar system. When the Valtheron arrive, they'll have one chance to withdraw. If they refuse, we'll show them why humanity builds weapons like this. As the council members filed out of the room, Lisa stayed behind. She looked at Henry with concern. Do you think this will work? Honestly? Henry looked at the hologram of Reckoning still floating in the center of the room. I think we're about to find out if humanity is ready for the galaxy. Or if the galaxy is ready for humanity. Either way, after the Valtheron see what we've built, things will never be the same. 3 days later, in a secret dock hidden in the asteroid belt beyond Mars, Captain Pete Johnson received his orders. He stood on the bridge of Reckoning for the first time since the ship had completed its final systems check. Around him, a crew of 500 of humanity's best officers and engineers prepared for launch. Pete looked at the main view screen, showing the vast emptiness of space. Somewhere out there, the Valtheron Empire was coming. They were bringing death and conquest. They thought they were facing primitives. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 6 months after the humiliation at New Terra, Emperor Valkaresh stood in the grand war room of the Imperial Palace. Before him, holographic displays showed 4,000 warships assembled in formation. It was the largest fleet the Valtheron Empire had gathered in 3 centuries. Every available vessel had been called to service. Every ally and subject species had been ordered to contribute ships. The Emperor was ancient by Valtheron standards, his face marked with deep ridges that showed his centuries of life. He'd ruled the Empire for 200 years, expanding its borders across countless systems. No one had ever defeated him. No one had ever dared to try. The humans will regret their defiance, the Emperor said to his assembled war council. We will jump directly to their home system. We will overwhelm their defenses before they can react. Their world will burn, and every species in the galaxy will remember what happens to those who resist the Empire. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying the Empire's fury toward Earth. The Emperor traveled aboard his personal command ship, the Divine Judgment, a vessel larger than any other in the fleet. He wanted to personally witness humanity's destruction. When the fleet emerged at the edge of Earth's solar system, the Emperor expected to see panic. He expected desperate defensive preparations. Instead, his sensors showed only a minimal defensive force. A few dozen human ships held position near their homeworld. It looked like token resistance, barely worth the effort to destroy. Where are their defenses? Demanded the Emperor. Our intelligence said they had hundreds of ships. His tactical officer studied the displays. Emperor, I'm detecting only 37 human vessels. But there's something else. A massive energy signature between us and Earth. It's not moving. A space station? The Emperor mused. They're hiding behind fortifications? Unknown, Emperor. It's too large to be a station. The energy readings are off our scales. The Emperor felt a moment of unease, but he pushed it aside. 4,000 ships against one target, whatever it was. The outcome was certain. Open a communication channel. I want to speak to whoever leads these humans. A human face appeared on the view screen. It was a male, older than most humans the Emperor had seen in captured intelligence reports. His hair was gray at the sides and his eyes were calm. Too calm for someone facing an invasion fleet. I'm Captain Pete Johnson of the human vessel Reckoning, the man said. His voice was even, showing no fear. I'm speaking on behalf of the unified Earth government. I am Emperor Valkaresh, supreme ruler of the Valtheron Empire, the Emperor replied. You and your people have defied the Empire. You have killed Imperial soldiers. You have refused to submit. For these crimes your world is forfeit. Surrender now and I will show mercy to your civilians. Resist and every human in this system will die. Pete Johnson listened to the entire speech without interrupting. When the Emperor finished, the human actually smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd heard foolish words before. Emperor Valkaresh, I need to correct some misunderstandings. First, we didn't defy your empire. We defended ourselves when you attacked us. Second, your soldiers died because they refused to leave us in peace. And third, you don't have the power to make demands. The Emperor felt rage building in his chest. I have 4,000 warships. You have 37. You dare speak to me this way? Emperor, I'm going to be very clear with you, Pete said, his smile fading. Your empire made first contact with humanity through violence. You've had multiple opportunities to choose peace. You've ignored every diplomatic message we've sent. You've forced our hand. What happens next is on you. Enough of this, the Emperor roared. All ships, attack! Destroy them! Pete's expression became sad. Not afraid, not angry, just deeply sad. I tried to warn you. Remember that, the view screen went dark. The Emperor turned to his tactical officer. Begin the assault! 4,000 warships began moving forward. It was a sight that had brought terror to hundreds of civilizations. An unstoppable wave of destruction, advancing with perfect precision. The Emperor felt satisfaction. These arrogant humans would learn their place. Then the energy signature moved. The thing that had been waiting between the Valtheron fleet and Earth revealed itself. It was a ship, but the words seemed inadequate. It was 20 kilometers of weapons, shields, and armor. It was Reckoning, and it was coming to life. The first shot from Reckoning's main cannons crossed the distance to the Valtheron fleet in less than a second. The compressed matter and antimatter warhead hit a cluster of 50 ships. They didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the impact. Evasive action, the Emperor screamed. Return fire! Thousands of weapons from the Valtheron fleet targeted Reckoning. Energy beams, missiles, kinetic rounds, every weapon in the Imperial arsenal. The barrage should have destroyed any ship. It should have killed anything in space. Reckoning's shields absorbed everything. Every shot, every missile, every attack simply vanished against the barrier of energy surrounding the massive vessel. The shields didn't even flicker. The Emperor watched in growing horror as his fleet poured enough firepower to level a continent at the human ship, and it had absolutely no effect. Reckoning fired again, and again. Each shot destroyed dozens of ships. The main cannons fired in a steady rhythm, never missing, never stopping, but that was just the beginning. Ports opened along Reckoning's hull, and thousands of objects deployed into space. "Sir, they're launching fighters or drones," the tactical officer reported. "Thousands of them." The objects weren't fighters. They were autonomous attack drones, each one equipped with weapons that would be considered main guns on a standard warship. They swept through the Valtheron fleet like a plague, destroying everything they touched. Each drone moved with impossible speed and precision, targeting weak points in shields and armor. The Emperor watched his tactical display turn red with casualty reports. 100 ships destroyed. 200. 300. The numbers kept climbing, and they'd only been fighting for 15 minutes. His legendary dreadnoughts, ships that had broken entire civilizations, were being torn apart like toys. "All dreadnoughts, focus fire on that vessel," the Emperor ordered. "Concentrate everything on one point. We'll overwhelm its shields." 20 of the Empire's mightiest warships moved into formation. They unleashed a coordinated barrage at a single point on Reckoning's shields. For a moment, the Emperor dared to hope. Then Reckoning's shields adjusted, redistributing power to the targeted area. The massive barrage was absorbed completely. Reckoning's response was devastating. Secondary weapons, smaller than the main cannons but still incredibly powerful, targeted each dreadnought individually. The ships that had been the pride of the Empire were crippled or destroyed in seconds. 20 dreadnoughts gone in less than a minute. Pete Johnson's face appeared on the Emperor's screen again. The human looked tired and disappointed. "Emperor, this ends now. Order your fleet to stand down and surrender, or I'll destroy every ship you have. Those are your only options." "Never," the Emperor shouted. "The Valtheron Empire does not surrender to primitives." "Then you've chosen death," Pete said quietly. Reckoning stopped holding back. The Emperor didn't even understand what changed, but suddenly the destruction became absolute. The massive ship moved through his fleet like a blade through cloth. Everything it targeted died. Its main cannons fired continuously. Its drones hunted with perfect efficiency. Its point defense system shot down every missile and projectile before they could get close. The Divine Judgment took a direct hit from one of Reckoning's main cannons. The Emperor's flagship shuddered as systems failed across the ship. Alarms screamed. Fire suppression systems engaged. The Emperor was thrown from his command throne as the ship lost power. In the darkness, lit only by emergency lights, the Emperor finally understood. He'd led the Empire's greatest fleet to absolute defeat. 4,000 ships reduced to burning wreckage in less than an hour. The Valtheron Empire, which had never known defeat, had been broken by a single human vessel. "Emperor, we're dead in space," his tactical officer reported. "Life support is failing. We need to surrender." The word tasted like poison, but the alternative was death. "Send the signal. We surrender." Pete Johnson appeared on their emergency screen. "Emperor Valkaresh, your fleet is beaten. Order all remaining ships to power down weapons and prepare to be escorted to a holding area. Human rescue vessels are already moving to assist damaged ships. We'll save as many of your people as we can." The Emperor stared at the human. They were sending rescue ships? They were saving Valtheron lives? It made no sense. "Why?" "We came to destroy you. We tried to kill you. Why save us?" "Because unlike your empire, we understand that soldiers follow orders," Pete said. "Your people were doing what you commanded. They're not our enemies, you are. And now you're going to learn what real strength looks like. It's not about how many ships you can build or how many worlds you can conquer. It's about knowing when to show mercy." The Emperor watched as human rescue ships moved through the debris field, pulling survivors from damaged Valtheron vessels. They were saving enemy lives even after everything the Empire had done. It was incomprehensible. Of the 4,000 ships that had attacked Earth, less than 8. 2 weeks after the Battle of Sol, representatives from the Valtheron Empire arrived at Unity Station, a neutral meeting place humanity had established in deep space. The station was new, built specifically for diplomatic encounters with alien species. Its halls were clean and functional, designed to accommodate different species comfortably. Emperor Valkaresh walked through the station with his remaining War Council members. He moved slowly, still recovering from injuries sustained when his flagship was crippled. The other council members showed similar signs of damage. These were leaders who'd never known defeat, and the weight of their failure showed in every step. Admiral Henry Cross waited in the main conference room. Beside him sat Director Lisa Grant and 3 other human representatives. They stood when the Valtheron entered, a sign of respect that surprised the aliens. After everything that had happened, humans were still treating them with dignity. Emperor Valkaresh, please sit, Henry said, gesturing to chairs designed for Valtheron physiology. Would you or your delegation like refreshments? The Emperor sat carefully. He studied the humans across the table. They looked calm and professional. There was no gloating, no triumph in their expressions. They looked like people who simply wanted to get work done. Admiral Cross, I will be direct, the Emperor said. The Valtheron Empire has been defeated. We acknowledge this. We expect that your terms will be harsh. We are prepared to negotiate territory concessions, tribute payments, and military restrictions. Henry exchanged glances with Lisa. She nodded slightly, and he turned back to the Emperor. Emperor, I think there's been a misunderstanding about what humanity wants from this peace. What do you mean? The Emperor asked suspiciously. Lisa leaned forward. We don't want your territory. We don't want tribute. We don't want to restrict your military or control your empire. We want 3 things and only 3 things. The Valtheron Council members looked confused. One of them, a female named Commander Sira, spoke up. You defeated our entire fleet. You could demand anything. Why would you limit your demands? Because taking everything would just create future problems, Lisa explained. If we crush you completely, other species will fear us. They'll see us as conquerors and they'll unite against us. We don't want that. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want to live in it peacefully. Henry pulled up a holographic display showing the treaty terms. Here's what we're asking for. First, a formal peace treaty between humanity and the Valtheron Empire. Both sides agree to respect each other's territorial boundaries and cease all hostilities. The Emperor nodded slowly. That was reasonable, even generous. Second, Henry continued, establishment of full diplomatic relations. We want embassies, cultural exchanges, trade agreements. We want our species to understand each other. Most conflicts come from ignorance and fear. If we know each other, we can avoid future misunderstandings. Commander Sira looked skeptical. You want to trade with us? After we tried to destroy you? Yes, Lisa said simply. You made a mistake based on bad assumptions. We're all guilty of that sometimes. The question is whether we learn from our mistakes or repeat them. We're hoping you'll choose to learn. And the third demand? The Emperor asked. We want you to join something new, Henry said. He changed the display to show a concept sketch of an interstellar council chamber. We're proposing the creation of a galactic council, a place where different species can meet, discuss problems, and resolve disputes without violence. Humanity will be a founding member. We want the Valtheron Empire to be another. The Emperor stared at the display. You want us, your defeated enemy, to help you create a galactic government? Not a government, Henry corrected. A council. A forum for discussion. Each species maintains its sovereignty. But when conflicts arise, we have a place to talk instead of shooting at each other. The Valtheron Empire is powerful and influential. Your voice matters. We want you at the table not because we're forcing you, but because peace works better when everyone has a say. The silence stretched for a long moment. Finally, the Emperor spoke, his voice quiet. Why, help me understand. We attacked your colony ship. We invaded your worlds. We came to Earth to destroy your entire species. Why show us mercy? Why offer us partnership instead of domination? Lisa stood up and walked around the table. She stood beside the Emperor's chair, looking down at him with an expression that mixed sympathy and determination. Emperor, can I tell you something about human history? The Emperor nodded. Humanity has made a lot of mistakes. We've fought countless wars among ourselves. We've conquered and oppressed and destroyed. For most of our history, we solved problems with violence. But eventually we learned something important. Revenge doesn't bring peace. Domination doesn't bring security. They just create cycles of violence that go on forever. She walked back to her seat. We learned that real peace requires something harder than conquest. It requires understanding. It requires treating former enemies as potential friends. It requires believing that people can change, that mistakes can be forgiven, and that the future doesn't have to repeat the past. We're not naive, Henry added. We know the galaxy is dangerous. That's why we built ships like Reckoning. That's why we maintain strong defenses. But we also know that military strength alone doesn't create lasting peace. That requires diplomacy, cooperation, and mutual respect. Emperor Valkaresh looked at his council members. They looked uncertain, still processing this unexpected turn of events. Finally, the Emperor looked back at Henry. If we agree to these terms, what happens to the ships you captured? What happens to our soldiers who are prisoners? All prisoners will be returned to the Empire within 30 days, Henry said immediately. No ransoms, no conditions beyond the peace treaty. Your ships that can be repaired will be returned. Those too damaged to repair will be scrapped, and we'll send you the materials. You're giving everything back? Commander Sira asked in disbelief. We're not interested in holding hostages or stealing your resources, Lisa said. We're interested in building trust. You can't build trust by keeping prisoners or stripping your enemies of everything they have. The Emperor sat back in his chair. For 200 years he'd ruled through strength and fear. He'd conquered species and bent them to his will. Now, defeated by a species he'd dismissed as primitive, he was being offered not subjugation but partnership. It challenged everything he'd believed about power and politics. I need time to consult with my government, the Emperor said finally. These terms are not what we expected. We need to consider them carefully. Take all the time you need, Henry said. We're not going anywhere. When you're ready to talk again, we'll be here. The negotiations continued for 3 more days. In the end, the treaty was signed. The Valtheron Empire agreed to peace with humanity and accepted membership in the proposed Galactic Council. News of the treaty spread across the galaxy within days. Other alien species watching from afar began to take notice of humanity. Some sent diplomatic missions seeking to establish peaceful relations. Others sent trade representatives, wanting to exchange goods and technology. A few sent military observers wanting to understand how humans had defeated the mighty Valtheron Empire. 1 year after the Battle of Sol, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a new ship. The Liberty's Dawn had been retired after its historic journey, and Jake now commanded a diplomatic vessel called the Friendship. His mission was to visit alien worlds and establish peaceful contact. Beside him stood Commander Zethra, the Valtheron officer who'd first attacked the Liberty's Dawn. Zethra had requested assignment as a liaison officer to humanity, wanting to make amends for his actions. Jake had agreed, believing that people deserved second chances. Captain Morrison, I must ask you something, Zethra said as they prepared to jump to their next destination. Your species built weapons like Reckoning. You have the power to conquer much of the galaxy. Why don't you? Jake smiled. Because having power and using power are different things. My father once taught me a saying, walk softly and carry a big stick. It means you should be peaceful and diplomatic, but always be ready to defend yourself if necessary. Humans prefer peace, Commander, but we're not foolish enough to be defenseless. The galaxy is fortunate that humans think this way, Zethra said quietly. Back on Earth, Admiral Henry Cross stood in the same conference room where the Council had authorized Reckoning's deployment. He looked at updated intelligence reports showing increased stability across known space. Species were talking to each other instead of fighting. Conflicts were being resolved through diplomacy. The Galactic Council was becoming a reality, but he also noted reports of hostile species in unexplored regions, new potential threats emerging from the unknown. The galaxy was still a dangerous place. Peace was fragile, always one bad decision away from shattering. He pulled up a display showing the current positions of humanity's 3 superweapons. Retribution was on patrol near the frontier colonies. Salvation was in dock for maintenance, and Reckoning, after its historic victory, held position at the edge of human space. Captain Pete Johnson remained in command of Reckoning. The crew stayed at their stations, monitoring the peaceful space lanes around them. Pete sat in his command chair watching the stars on the view screen. He hoped he'd never have to fire his weapons again.